$7.8 million. Just let that number sink in for a second, because it is absolutely massive. And according to a pretty sweeping report released by House Democrats, that's actually just the minimum amount of money Donald Trump's businesses received from foreign governments and government-backed entities while he was actively sitting in the Oval Office. We are literally talking about millions of dollars flowing from international leaders directly into properties owned by the sitting president of the United States. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into what is, honestly, a massive and incredibly complex web. We're going to examine the intersection of Donald Trump's global financial interests, his deep-rooted business ties, and his geopolitical maneuvering, particularly over in the Middle East. We'll be pulling from a variety of sources here: hard data from congressional reports, academic analysis from King's College London, financial tracking, and international news reports, all to piece together a clear picture of how foreign money might actually be influencing American policy. So let's get right into it. Here's a quick look at our roadmap for today. We're going to trace the foreign money trail, identify the top contributing nations, explore the paradox between Arab wealth and pro-Israel policy, link those payments to actual policy outcomes, and finally, zero in on Trump's ultimate priority. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the foreign money trail. So back when Donald Trump took office in 2017, he made the choice to retain personal ownership of his businesses. Now, this arrangement immediately set off alarm bells regarding the Foreign Emoluments Clause. In simple terms, this is a constitutional rule specifically designed to prevent foreign powers from basically buying influence. House Democrats alleged that by holding onto his businesses, Trump allowed foreign money from 20 different countries to just pour into his hotels in places like Washington, Las Vegas, and New York. And they argued this was a direct violation of that rule. Oh, and remember that $7.8 million figure we talked about? Investigators actually noted that because they only got their hands on a limited number of financial documents from his accounting firm, that number is likely just a tiny fraction of the whole shebang. Which brings us to Section 2, top contributing nations. Where exactly was all this cash coming from? Let's take a look. You have to see these numbers, because the flow of capital here is highly revealing. Despite his very frequent public criticism of China, the Chinese government and its state-owned entities were actually the top spenders, injecting nearly $5.6 million into Trump properties. But right beneath them, you've got Saudi Arabia at over $615,000 and Qatar at over $465,000. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars flowing from Gulf nations directly into Trump's pockets, all while he was the primary architect of U.S. foreign policy in that exact region. But wait, this money trail doesn't just stop after his first term. Recent investments from the Gulf states show this is very much a continued trend. Just look at this breakdown. The United Arab Emirates royal family agreed to drop $500 million on a 49% stake in Trump's cryptocurrency company, World Liberty Financial. The Qatari royal family gifted a Boeing 747-8 luxury jet worth $400 million, which was apparently intended to be retrofitted as Air Force One. And Saudi Arabia? They injected literal billions into a private equity firm run by Jared Kushner, Trump's own son-in-law. So with all that money moving around, let's jump to Section 3, Arab wealth versus Israel policy. We've got a massive geopolitical paradox going on here. How does Donald Trump balance these immense, extremely lucrative financial ties to Arab nations with his unprecedented political backing of Israel? It's like a tug of war. On one side, you have the Gulf Cooperation Council providing pure financial gravity. Billions in petrodollars, those huge crypto deals, luxury jets. On the other side, you have Israel, backed by massive political lobbying power from groups like AIPAC, heavy financial support from megadonors, and the absolutely crucial ideological support of the evangelical voter base here in the U.S. Analysts frequently debate why Trump favors Israeli leadership so heavily when the Arab states offer much more direct personal and national financial rewards. Well, to really get inside his mindset, it's best to just let Trump explain his own motivations. During a rally, he famously said this: Saudi Arabia, I get along great with all of them. They buy apartments from me. They spend $40 million, $50 million. Am I supposed to dislike them? I like them very much. I mean, that is an incredibly candid admission, right? It perfectly illustrates exactly how personal business transactions heavily color his worldview and his affection for foreign states. But you have to contrast that warm affection for Saudi Arabia with his actual policy actions regarding Israel. According to analysis from King's College London, Trump's approach is fundamentally different from past administrations. While President Biden tried and arguably failed to restrain Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Trump has taken a totally hands-off approach. In fact, the King's College report concludes that Trump has essentially turned the U.S. into Israel's fervent enabler. They argue he's allowed them to pursue what the analysts describe as revisionist ambitions, remaking the Middle East through military force and territorial conquest without any real fear of losing U.S. backing. So we have foreign money flowing in, and we have fierce political alliances taking shape. Let's move to Section 4, linking payments to policy. How do these conflicting interests actually translate into specific, real-world U.S. policy actions? Well, the sources point out some pretty stark correlations. For example, while receiving Saudi money, Trump publicly doubted the U.S. intelligence community's conclusion that the Saudi crown prince ordered the killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, opting to defend the kingdom instead. On the other hand, heavy pro-Israel lobbying has been linked to Trump's endorsement of sweeping Israeli territorial plans. But the Qatar situation? That one is perhaps the most striking example of all. Just look at this incredibly rapid timeline. On May 11th, the $400 million Qatar jet gift is publicly announced. Boom. 10 days later, on May 21st, the Department of Defense formally accepts it. Fast forward just a few months to September 29th, and Donald Trump signs an executive order declaring that the U.S. will treat any armed attack on Qatar as a threat to the peace and security of the United States. I mean, that is a massive, sweeping defense pact following right on the heels of a $400 million gift. Meanwhile, on the Israeli front, we see policy outcomes like the so-called Gaza Riviera Plan. The analysis from King's College highlights that Trump has endorsed ideas that align perfectly with far-right Israeli goals to transfer Palestinian populations out of the territory. The report argues that under Trump, the U.S.-Israel relationship looks far less conditional, essentially granting Israel a free pass to use U.S. global hegemony to pave the way for its own territorial goals. However, this alliance is definitely not without its complications. According to international reporting from Newslens, an Israeli espionage scandal targeting the United States has recently emerged and reached what they call a critical threat level. Anonymous sources in the reporting indicate this has deeply embarrassed Trump, proving that even his most favored geopolitical alliances come with severe friction and behind-the-scenes drama. And that brings us to our final section, Section 5, Trump's ultimate priority. We've looked at the money, the lobbying, the timelines, and the policies. So, based on all the evidence presented in this explainer, I want you to ask yourself, what truly drives Donald Trump's geopolitical maneuvering? Is it his personal business interests? Is it the sheer power of the presidency itself? Or is it a genuine, unyielding ideological commitment to Israel? To make sense of it all, we have to look at this concept, transactional politics. Analysts and public consensus widely agree that Trump doesn't really operate with some grand, overarching ideological master plan. Instead, his approach is highly transactional. Relationships, policies, and global maneuvers are determined by reciprocal benefits. He tends to prioritize those who flatter him, support him politically, or directly enrich his businesses. The core takeaway from synthesizing all our sources today is pretty clear. From the House Oversight Committee tracking millions flowing into his hotels, to the massive Gulf crypto and aviation investments, to the undeniable influence of pro-Israel lobbying groups, it all points to a leader driven primarily by business interests and transactional gains. He often completely blurs the lines between his personal profit and official national policy in the Middle East. Which leaves us with this final, really vital question. If the geopolitical alliances of the most powerful nation on Earth are highly transactional and seemingly open to the highest financial bidder, what does that actually mean for the future stability of U.S. foreign policy? When the line between a president's private wealth and a nation's public interests completely vanishes, how does the rest of the world react? It's a question we absolutely need to be paying close attention to. Thank you for joining me on this explainer today. Keep asking questions and keep looking at the data.